Good day, you lovely people. Today we will be exploring the differences between recording, mixing, and mastering. Right, let's get the rock on. Right then, let's get straight into this. So, what we're going to be looking at specifically in this instance of video-ness is we're going to look at recording and tracking, or what the recording and tracking process is. We're going to have a look at the mixing stage and what's involved in mixing, and then finally what's involved and what goes on with mastering. So without any further ado, let's get cracked on. So what we can see here, we've got one microphone in the middle of the room. That's this fella here. These other mics are just to pick up the room ambience. And what we've got going on here is it's like a little bluegrass combo. And this we would regard as internally balanced. They'd all move themselves closer to or further away from the mic or change the way that they play. You can see it's all predominantly acoustic instruments apart from Mr. Bass Guitar. And he would just turn his amp up or down to suit the internal balance of the recording. So remember, this one is one microphone. These are just for room ambience. The main thing we're looking at here is one microphone. So on our next slide, what we've got here is above Mr. Gaggier, Mr. Conductor, we've got a video. This photo video, it probably was a video as well, but they're using a reference pair. What that means is it just means that they've been picked in the factory and they're balanced with each other or wherever they're manufactured. And the microphones are mounted on what's called a stereo bar. That allows you to do loads of different stereo microphone techniques. I'll do some of that later on, but we're a little bit early in the day for this. So this is still internally balanced. You can see they put the big noisy bits at the back, so the noisy bits don't drown everything else out. Next thing that we have is this is the same kind of orchestral thing going on. This is Abbey Road, tremendous setup. And what we can see here is we've got loads and loads of microphones placed around the orchestra, and these pick up the sound. So we're internally balanced, but we now have control over all the different sections, because if we see all these microphones are all going to go through the wall box onto separate channels on the mixing desk and then go into our recording device, whatever it may be, and then we'll be able to manipulate that sound later on, each individual microphone. So what we've got here is we've got a bog standard 3-piece rock band, Mr. Bass Player, Mr. Guitar Boy, Mr. Drummist, and we could see that they're all set up, everything's mic'd up, all set up to go on a session. 2 microphones to pick up the sound of the room on the floor, another microphone here, that's a stereo microphone by the look of it. It's going to pick up what's going on in the room. Angle these away so they don't bleed on each other, and you'll get a little bit of spill on the drums. We'll have a look at that when we come to do the mixing thing. But the thing here is we're going to go for a performance, get the performers comfortable with each other, so they're able to get right into the music, communicate with each other visually while they're doing a recording. However, he doesn't look very happy. Might be concentrating. I'm not very good at that concentrating lark. And finally, what we can do is we can isolate everything. So we've got a drum kit here, and we've just got to kind of believe is that there's nobody else in the room and nick this off Tinterweb. So what we do here is we're going to get we pick the room for the sound of the room and the effect it has on the instrument that we're trying to capture. So there's all our recording bits and pieces. The next thing that we go on to is the mixing stage. Right, what we've got here, we've got a stereo recording of a performance by a brass band, kind of mixed band really. So if we have a little listen to this, tiny little bit of background noise. And then we've got a lovely lovely stereo field going on. We can see it's not super loud. Because we're recording digitally, we get loads of headroom. But this is what we would regard as an internally balanced source. Now, what I can do here is, because we're in Cubase, I can go in and I can add some different bits and pieces. So if we let this play along, I can just put a big, what we call high shelf on that. I could use another gizmo to make the sound more even. This here, this bit, is a spectrum of what's been recorded. So there's a internally balanced source, just recorded on 2 microphones. So internally balanced source recorded on 2 microphones and sounds tremendous. The really important thing is getting a good sounding room. That's not a bad sounding little room. That's at New Elvet near Durham. So what have we got next? Well, first off, what we've got here is we've got loads and loads of pretty colours. What we can see here is we can see on this side here, there's a kick drum or bass drum. Another kick drum. Drummer had played with 2 bass drums, snare drum, floor tom, couple of other toms, made in a small right now. I didn't put any microphones on the overheads, because what you'll be able to hear here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press a button on the mixer. There's this here. When we click on this, so click on the lead vocal there, we can see we've got a fader, and what the fader does is it changes the volume level of this track. Well, if I hit this S, it plays this track by itself. So what I'm going to do first, I'll just play the whole thing. You can hear it's a bit of a racket, bit of a motion. It's all coming out the middle, like this big, all bundled together here. Well, what we need to do, the first thing that would be good is these. We've got guitars left and right. And if I play that again now and you listen to the difference. Bass guitar's a little loud, but right, this is where the lead vocal is. So let's have a look at what we've got called spill on the lead vocal track. I'll go back from the beginning again. So that's just the vocal mic. Now watch what happens when the vocal comes in here. Picture painted through hate-filled eyes. Definitely a rehearsal. That's yours truly shouting and bawling there. It's a band I was in years ago called Pig. Right, let's have a look at a couple of other things. So what I can do here is, because I've got all these red tracks that are the drums, they're grouped into what we call a subgroup. So this is where we would start our mixing process, and we would be able to individually manipulate any of these tracks. But what I want you to hear with this is, listen to the noise on the drums. So you can hear right in the background, you can still hear the rest of the band. It was only a little room in a practice room. So what's really cool with this is both guitarists used amps that had what's called a DI, direct injection, that came out of that and straight into the recording gear. So if I go from the beginning and we have a listen. Nice and quiet, and we don't have to worry about any spill onto the guitars, however the guitars are spilling onto the drum kit. Right, where are we going to go next? So the next step will be to get yourself into a lovely sounding room. If I just play these drums, something we're going to have a little look at on all these multi-track recordings. You can see there's a little bit of room reverb on that. It's a little bit kind of open sounding. So where we're going to go to next is we're going to have a look at a recording in a recording studio that was done by one of my old students. Right, what we've got going on here, we've had our live, internally balanced recording. We've had a band recording in a rehearsal room with a horrendous spill on everything. It come out all right. It'll do for the purpose it was. Just to see what the song sounded like. If the truth be known, it was a backing track for me to practice my old gob along now. This next one is live in the studio, in a decent studio. This was recorded at the college where I work. One of the uni students was doing a project, and he's chose to have his ears assaulted by Bugsy, the singer's voice. So let's have a little listen to just the sound of the room. So I'm just going to hit the M button, that's mute, sometimes called a cut button. Both do the same job. Here all that's nice and relatively quiet, and here's the drums. There is kind of a bit of ambience around them. They were all screened off to stop spill coming over from. The guitar was in the room and the vocal was in the room. So let's have a look at them too. Now, I'm going to use the other button here. I'll just unmute them. The button at the top, actually, that you can press it to get rid of them all. So here's our vocal. Let's have a listen to a gap. So you can hear the vocal, very, very quiet. Vocal come in.
We are called the welfare state.
Not a great deal of spill on that. So let's have a look at the guitar before the track starts. There's no drums or anything here, Paul tapping along on the guitar. Just have a listen to the guitar itself. So cool, all nice, no spill off anything. However, later in the song there's a drum fill. And then a guitar solo. We can hear that picked up off the mic. The only way to get around that would be the next process will be no one in the room or shoving all the gear in separate rooms themselves. Once you set up and going with this, the whole idea of having everybody live, playing live and having them in the room together is to the communication between the bands going. You might get a better vibe, get a better feel for it. I'm a big fan of recording like that now, and all my recordings I do all live together, but I isolate the drums totally. So where next? Let's just have a quick listen to the sound of the drums, because that'll be interesting comparing the next one. So yeah, a bit of room ambience there, but it's all right. So where next? What we're going to look at next is a recording that's all done completely isolated from each other. This is a studio recording from of an album called Don't Tell Me Man by the band that just been on, the made Space Frogs. This was recorded in about, I think it was 2007. I'm just going to mute this where it says Nun's kick and Nun's snare, because these are like effecty things. So let's solo the track and let's have a listen to the drum sound. Can you hear how the drum sounds really, really dead? That's because of the nature. It was an old radio station, and their big live room was to allow get loads of people in to do spoken word things and that. And this was even in the bright corner. We can go in and do a bit of manipulation with this when we're mixing. So remember, we can go on to a kick drum, and we can have a listen individually to the kick drum. If I do that now, you can see that there's not a lot of spill. I've got what they call some effects on here. Let's have a look what's on. There's a compressor on, and then there's what they call there's a module by a company called Waves. It gives you the channel strip of one of these really expensive SSL consoles. So this is the old track, and you can see that there's a lot of stuff going on the stereo field. It's taken up a lot of tracks. We're getting up to 30 tracks. It was actually only recorded on 24, and I'm just going through and tidying it up at the moment. But you can see there's a lot of movement across the stereo field, and just shoving the volume up to give us a decent little big noisy bit coming on. So that's a couple of layers of guitars, and what you do there to get that effect is we've recorded what we call the clean guitars and plinky guitars, and then we've recorded the big dirty guitars on separate tracks. Each of these is a separate track, so we can build these up. We've got loads and loads of tracks available to us in a DAW these days. So the drummer put this track down with it was just me actually playing bass and Bugsy having a sing along. So what we've seen there is a couple of different instances of the way the songs have been recorded, and how you would go about mixing them. This at the bottom is like your old mixing desk. What's cool on Cubase is you can make all the channels a little bit closer together, so it's easier to see. And then I think really the essence of mixing we can leave to another one, but basically what we're doing is if I solo, let's get a Bugsy vocal, talk among yourselves.
Your wife will hear they are. Now the cover. Give me a sex for me, Costa in the
So I can move
oh,
where it is in the stereo field and how loud that is. So then I can blend that, and what we've done there is, perish the thought, we've got a few Bugsies all at once. So that's the essence of mixing. So what's this mastering thing all about? So let's have a look at that next. We shall have a look now. Right, straight away you can see it's completely different software, and that's because loads of people get the wrong idea with mastering. There's a lot more to mastering than making something big and shiny. What we've got is, if you look up at the top of the screen here, there's loads and loads of different things that we can do now. If I click on where it says CD, it's giving us information that we can write onto the CD from this software. You can see the gap here. These two red markers correlate to the end of this song and the beginning of that song, and that's the gap in your CD, and we've put a little fade on here. The other thing that we've got is we can put in here what's called an ISRC. It's the ISRC data. It stands for International Standard Recording Code. And what this is for is when it gets played in a radio station, it's so the composer and the artist and the label can all get paid. This is the little bit that a lot of people who are just getting into mastering kind of forget about, because the main thing with mastering, in days of old, the mastering engineer's job was to make a project like all cohesive and stick together. So the recordings might have been done in different studios, and then with a different set of tools, the mastering engineer would go about manipulating the audio. Well, this recording we've got here is by a local band. This was recorded in the 1980s, and I've already got a video up there of audio restoration. Well, this is a song that I'd restored the audio from, and if we have a listen to this without any effects or any treatment or anything that I've done. these blue things up here that are whizzing along, this is what we call a live spectrogram, and what it's doing is it's showing us the high frequency content that's in the tape, because one of the things with tapes, when they degrade, you do lose a bit of the top end. It's a thing called print through. Anyway, what we can see is there's a bit there. This is one channel, this is the other channel, and this is a low frequency and this is a higher frequency. So just keep an eye on them when we have a go, listen back through, and I put all the mastering treatment on, and we'll just go from the top. I'll go at the same point in the song again. Brilliant. You can see we've got a lot more high frequency content in here. That's magic, that. Actually, it's not. It's using some of the tools that I have in some of the mastering stuff that I have here. I love mastering in a DAW because it's completely recallable. If I send a DDP off to somebody and they come back and say, oh, it's all a bit bright, or if it's a rap artist, no, it's not slamming enough, I can go back in and adapt all that. Cool. Can you hear how it's brought all the effect, and there's a lot of kind of clarity in the track now, and some of that's getting rid of modes, some of it's getting different frequencies under control, but the mastering thing is not all about, obviously I've been able to make it louder, and a little bit, you know, it's a little bit more pleasing on the ear, but it's not slammingly loud. So when it gets loaded up to go to digital distribution, even if they try and squash it to death, it's already present at a decent level. The important thing to remember here is, if we're working remotely, one of the great things that we've got now of working in a DAW is when I click save in this particular program, this is called Wavelab, it saves all my settings, and if I go over to this bit here, I can save all my effects, so I can save my mastering chain. Where in days of old, when I was mastering, we had all separate analog mastering gear that you would tweak up and that, and it was very difficult to recall something that you've mastered. So if somebody comes back and says, oh, it's a bit too loud, which you very rarely get, somebody may say, oh, there's a bit too much bass in it or whatever, but the idea of the mastering is it'll be able to play on any system. What I'm able to do is then send somebody what we call we send a file type of MP3, or if it's an album, I can send them what's called a DDP, and a DDP is basically a CD that I can send over the internet and you can burn off at your end. I'll do another session on them. But there's loads of cool stuff in Wavelab where if I can click on here and I can get it to play back what it's going to sound like as a 96 kbs MP3. Well, there ends all the information for the mixing. I'll put them in the right order really, the recording, mixing and mastering, so you can see the processes are very different. So the recording process, the idea is keeping the artist happy, getting them ready, you know, for being creative, making sure we're not getting in the way of that. We get all that done, finished, then it goes to the mixing engineer to mix it and make it all sound lovely. And then the mastering engineer is the last link in the chain before it then goes out to a pressing plant, or in these day and age, we will go to digital distribution. So if you've enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button at the bottom, and I'll be back shortly with more interesting wonderfulness that is audio and the music industry. And remember, be nice, work hard, and don't be a dick.